cat in the wall, eh? Okay, now you're talking my language.
You ever drunk Baileys from a shoe?
Oh, great. Thanks, Mother, for replacing the baby aspirin with LSD.
How much you want to make a bet I can throw a football over the mountain?
All right, welcome back into the View from C-Deck. It's me, Just Matt, here with Dyerwolf, ready for Week 11 of some gambling lines. To pick them, put out our thoughts for this week's slate of college football. After a decent week for both of us, I went 3-2. I think you went 3-2 as well.
I went 2-3.
Yeah. Well, either way, we're both like treading around 500 or above, like right at the line for the season. So we've come back. We've stabilized ourselves a little bit after some rocky moments early on, to kick Vegas in the teeth and make a strong run down the stretch here. Now that we have a really good idea of what every team is. Of course, so does Vegas, and the lines this week I thought were hard as shit to pick.
Yeah, they were.
Yeah. But we'll start, as always, with the Buckeyes, with a hard line to pick and what I'm staying away from, most likely. But Ohio State 40.5-point favorites against Indiana, and what Vegas thinks will be a laugher. I think it'll be a laugher, but who knows? The way we've been playing lately, over under 57.5 too. On our podcast, I think I picked Indiana with the 40, but the over. Got to be a cold one coming in there Saturday, like still in the 30s at kickoff in the shoe, but shouldn't be near the windstorm that we just played in against another very inferior team. Indiana stinks.
Yep, they're the second worst team in the conference, pretty much hands down. I don't know who would argue who would. I mean, I guess Rutgers, but
yeah,
I would.
They beat Indiana already, though.
Yeah, so. Yeah, I'm with you. I'm staying the hell away from it. After last week, it was about the same spread, and that wasn't even close, obviously due to the weather. But I'm not thinking we're going to cover this. It's a really big line. I know they're going to have a hard week of practice after last week. They can sugarcoat it all he wants, but he's got to be pissed off.
Yeah.
Especially those third and shorts, fourth and shorts that we weren't getting. That's got to be fixed. So I do think we'll run a lot better this week, but 40 points is a lot. That over-under is tough. And that's tough because it all depends on how many Indiana scores. If we shut them out, I don't think we're hitting that over at all. And we could shut them out.
I've been calling for a shutout for forever, and we haven't been able to get it, so I'm not calling for that. I think they get like 14, one against our starters and one against our backups.
Mm-hmm.
As tends to happen.
I would stay away from both of them, but if I had to pick, it would be under and not cover. Or did I do over on the pod? Previous pod.
You did over, but you can change your mind, do whatever the hell you want.
Yeah.
Your show too. All right. Other bigger, better games to move on to. The Darling. We'll start with one of my picks, and what is a little bit, I think, of a ballsy pick line. The Darlings of last week, LSU. Knocked off Bama at home. Only 3-point favorites on the road at an Arkansas team that just lost to Liberty and has struggled a lot since their early season win against Cincinnati. They're only 5-4, but they're only getting 3 at home, and I'm like, that's a little ballsy. And I looked at the stats, I'm like, they got a pretty good offense and they're pretty balanced. Their defense is not good, but it's their pass D that's not good. LSU is not a great passing offense at all. So I think Arkansas keeps it close enough. And I think LSU, obviously, this is a come-down game. Could easily be a big come-down game. Plus, it's a nooner on the road. So I went ahead and took the Hogs. Go Hogs for the ballsy pick for this week.
I almost did. It was close. So I would pick Arkansas if I had to. It wasn't one of mine, but I see it being real close, but they might pull it out just because they know in their minds they probably think they run the table, they're making the playoff, and who knows, they could win a freaking national title. So
LSU is they.
Yes, LSU.
Or maybe Arkansas is just losing. I don't know.
Yeah. So it really depends. I mean, they put literally everything out there to beat Bama, kind of like A&M did last year. That's kind of what it reminded me of. So if I had to, I'd pick Arkansas, but I stayed away. I was close to picking it, but not quite.
You did pick another team that had a big game last week, though, and we're on the opposite side, the losers. Tennessee Volunteers licking their wounds after getting big boy balled by Georgia all day Saturday. 20.5 now. If you picked it at 21, I'll give you the extra half point, though, in your direction. Home against Missouri. Missouri's always, they gave better game to Georgia than Tennessee does, so I don't see why you think Tennessee does this. I'm just kidding. I don't know if I'm with you, though. That's a lot of points for a Missouri team that they played a lot of close games. They're not good at all. They've lost most of these close games, but they played a lot of them. So, I'll stay with Tennessee, though. 21, especially since that half point came down. Boom, I'm in.
That's a big half point.
Yeah.
It could be 21 on the nose. My thinking there is they did just get beat up all game long. They've been everybody's story all year. Everybody's been singing their praises. They were freaking number one previous week. So it really depends on their mentality coming into it. But I'm thinking that their logic is they got to get style points. They got to crush everybody the rest of the year. And if they do that, if they win by 40 points the rest of the year against everybody, then it might be hard to leave them out, even though they're not going to be playing in championship week.
Right. We said it. We picked on our other. Well, I guess we'll do our picks at the end of this podcast too. So I'll leave it for then. Another nooner that is going to be an ugly game and not one anybody should actually view with their eyeballs. But I picked Illinois in Purdue game, and I picked Illinois to cover their 6.5. This is a huge game for Illinois as they can kind of sew up the West after tripping and falling and landing on their face like the entire Big West. The Big West champion should be doing that. Losing, they've now lost to like the bottom two teams in the East, I think, and rolled the West so far. But if they beat Purdue, then they go like a good chance of going undefeated in the West. I think they only have Northwestern left after that, and they control their own destiny. So I think it's a big enough game. It's going to be It's going to be cold and probably a little windy there, and that could ground Purdue, who just flailed against Iowa and only scored 3 last week. So, and like I said, I think Illinois got caught napping last week against Sparty more than anything. I don't think they're that bad, so I got them covering.
Yeah, that one was. I looked at that one too, and I don't know enough about Purdue to bet on that. Illinois, I think they came into it. I bet on them last week. That was one reason I'm not doing it this week. The reason I bet on them last week is I thought Michigan State would come out flat, having 7 or 8 guys suspended after all that drama, but that actually fired them up. So, yeah, if I had to, I'd probably pick Illinois, but I stayed away from that one.
Yeah. Well, everybody should stay away from that game because it's going to be ugly. Another one, that potential ugliness that I picked, we're about to pound through all my picks like right away. Penn State hosting Maryland after Maryland just had a rough go of it in Wisconsin and basically ended their hopes of being any sort of top 25 team at the end of the year. They have left. And Penn State bounced back nicely against Indiana, about the only team that was impressive in the windstorms this weekend. So I got Penn State covering at home, though, mostly because it's at home. They're a good team at home. Maryland is not a good team in big games, and they prove it year in and game in every single year. Whenever there's any sort of expectations for them, they flounder. But this could be, I guess, a little bit trickier since they could get overlooked a bit. But Penn State covers.
I thought about picking this one too, and I kind of stayed away because the only good teams Penn State's played, they've lost to. And then you could look at Auburn, who they're probably maybe 6-3, 5-4 at best.
They're like 3-6.
Are they really 3-6? Yeah. So yeah, I mean, who's the third best team they've played? I couldn't even tell you.
Nobody. Minnesota.
Maryland. So
yeah,
if they crush Maryland, then they're a legit top 10 team, I think. And they just they played us and Michigan, who are legit top 5 teams. So I stayed away because I still don't think we know a whole lot about them this late in the season, which is crazy to say. But they'll be easily the third best team they've played this year. So I stayed away. But if I had to, I probably would pick Penn State.
Another 3:30 game. Casey's Darlings, who I swear one of these days they're going to start playing angry Alabama. Angry Alabama now with 2 losses. Goes to play Lane Kiffin and Ole Miss in Oxford. This is also kind of, I think, ballsy pick territory. It's down to 11.5 though now. The line is. It was 12 right before we picked them, but I'm going to give myself the half point here because I picked Bama to actually cover because I do think they're actually angry. And I also think Ole Miss isn't that good. They're a good running team, but Bama's run defense has actually remained stout the entire season. They had tons of problems in the secondary, but I'm not sure Ole Miss can exploit it. Jackson Dart's been throwing a lot of picks over there. So I'll take Bama covering the 11.5 on the road. They finally are pissed off. Maybe not. I don't think they're actually that good, but I think they win by like 14.
If I had to, I'd actually probably pick Ole Miss. I touched on it in our previous podcast that they actually do have a snowball's chance of making the playoff if all the cards fall the right way. Obviously starts with beating Bama, but they only have 1 loss. They need LSU to lose. So, they got a lot to play for still. Alabama, they're Alabama. They got the reputation to play for. So
Yeah.
We'll see how it goes. I stayed away, but if I had to, I'd actually bet on Ole Miss.
They have not having Saban yell at them to play for.
Yeah.
But I could definitely be wrong here. This Bama season could definitely implode. It would not surprise me if a lot of those guys start putting their eye towards the NFL draft now, since they're done for the championship chase, and that's why most of those guys play at Bama.
Yep.
Keeping the eye on the enemy here. Another 3:30 game. Not one that either of us picked though, but the Wolverines hosting Nebraska, 29.5 point favorites. I think that 1.5 over the 28 mark is what scared me away from picking them. Just because they play a style that leads to them maybe not blowing out teams that are at least somewhat competent as bad as they could. But they've been a cover machine lately, and they covered last week, and wish I would have picked them against Rutgers. But I'll take them to cover because I think they're just rolling right now, and Nebraska's just not a good team.
I would actually lean towards Nebraska. Just the history of the last couple of years, they always play in these close games. I don't think it'll be a close game, but they are one of those teams that isn't as bad as their record would imply, I would say. And Michigan, like you said, does seem to – I could see at halftime they're only up like 7, which was the case with Rutgers, and then they blew the freaking doors off.
They were down 3.5 against Rutgers.
They were what?
Down 3.
Down, yeah. And that blow up in the second half was more to do with Rutgers. They turned it over like back-to-back possessions, and all the turnovers resulted in touchdowns, which Nebraska could obviously do, but I think they're a little bit better than Rutgers. So I think they'd keep it within like 21-24 amount of points.
All right. This next game is a total Casey game to pick because he loves like just scraping the barrel for these bottom tier games to pick. So seeing Northwestern, Minnesota's turned into a bad team after looking good their first 3 games this year, and now they stink. And obviously Northwestern's the worst team in the Big Ten, even though they gave a high-stated game. Getting 17.5 on the road. Casey, tell me why you're picking Minnesota here, and I'll tell you why you're wrong in a second.
I'm picking Minnesota simply because we were their freaking Super Bowl, and they probably feel like they got this freaking close. They had the perfect weather for them. It was the perfect setup. They didn't really get that close to winning, in my opinion, but in their mind, they probably felt like they were right there. And they're not going to have that bullshit weather to benefit them this week. Most likely, they're not going to be playing in the tournament. So that's kind of why I went there. I think Northwestern is awful, and that's part of the reason why I was very upset in our game. But Minnesota, like you said, they're kind of up and down. They're definitely going in the wrong direction right now. But I think they cover that spread.
I'm going to take the opposite look here for Northwestern. I don't think they really expected to be that close with us. So I think it was just a big bonus and maybe actually gives them some confidence to go out and play like some decent ball and keep it within 17 and a half. That's mainly, I don't know if they win the game, but I think they keep it close enough.
Yeah.
All right. The other 3:30 game that is not really on our radars, most people's radars, but should be since it's a ranked matchup between two American teams. UCF traveling to Tulane, so we're going to talk about since it's a ranked matchup. UCF has a bizarre loss that they got killed by ECU a few weeks ago, but other than that, they've been rolling since an early season loss of the Big Island Conference game. Tulane has a conference loss. No, they're undefeated in conference. I forget who they lost to, but they beat Kansas State in the non-conference portion of their schedule. 2-point favorites, though. This is probably the game that's going to decide which G5 team gets a New Year's Six bid. The way the college football rankings, since the CFP is giving any nod of approval towards Liberty, despite their win over Arkansas last week and their 1-point loss to Wake. But I digress a bit. I'm going to take UCF, though, just because I'm getting the 2 points. I think it's a really close game and good game, but they've played well, and I think the ECU was them looking ahead to Cincinnati. It should be a great game.
Yeah, just from history, I don't know much about Tulane at all, but I would go with UCF just because, the past 4 or 5 years, they seem like they've been a powerhouse among the group of 5 teams. Outside of Cincinnati, I guess they've probably been the best. Cincinnati has been the last couple years, but I would go with UCF. It's only 2. It's -2, you said?
Yeah.
Yeah, so.
They're getting 2. UCF's getting 2.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So, yeah, I'm definitely staying away from that one, but it's probably going to be a hell of a game for sure.
Yeah.
And it'll have huge implications in a couple years from now once it's 12 teams.
Yes. Oh, yes. Very. That would have been. This would be one of the game day might be there.
Yeah.
Case. A game with huge implications. If only there's a massive upset. Georgia going to Mississippi State. Only 16-point favorites against a Mississippi State team that's gotten their doors blown off a couple times by good teams. But it's Georgia coming off of a high game, and they could just come in and play relaxed. But this is the type of game that Mike Leach's team have gotten their butts kicked in many times. When they play a defense that actually can shut down that high-powered passing attack, they don't really know what to do with themselves. So I'm going to take Georgia minus the 16. I think they keep the train rolling right now. I mean, they call it off the dogs against Tennessee. That game wasn't nearly as close as that final score indicated.
No, I would pick Georgia too. It's not one of my picks, but it's one of those where they're coming off of a big win. Like, I always go back to the JT Barrett when we had that comeback win against Penn State, huge celebration, and then we freaking get our doors blown off by Iowa the very next week. I don't think anything like that's going to happen, but they might come in a little bit slow, and their defense is going to win the game if it has to. But I would pick Georgia if I needed to, but I would not be shocked if it was like a 20-point game in the fourth quarter, and then they give up a late touchdown or something stupid like that.
We played Iowa in 2017? I don't recall. I don't remember that game.
Yeah, I'm drunk. Never mind. That didn't happen.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about. Another 7 o'clock game with big implications and another top 25 matchup. Oregon hosting Washington. This was a game I almost picked, and then I started to go back and forth on it, and then I decided not to pick it since I was like, why am I picking this game if I'm going back and forth on it? But they're 13.5-point favorites. Michael Penix brings one of the best passing attacks in the country, though, to Eugene. This 13.5 seems like a lot to me for this game, but then I'm like, man, we've seen Washington kind of get beat down by UCLA on the road. Oregon's really rolling right now. I could see them going. This is a hard pick either way. I think I'm going to go with Washington, though. Oregon's pass defense isn't great at all, and Washington's pass offense is great. But I also seen Penix, much like Bo Nix of previous years, just like flat out stink in big games because he can be a little erratic with his accuracy. But I'll take the Huskies to cover, but I think Oregon wins.
I can't remember. Did I make this? Was this one of my picks?
No, I don't think so.
Okay, I was very strongly debating it, and I would go with Washington too. And not that they watch the freaking CFP like you and I do, even though you probably didn't even watch it, but they try not to look at it. I'm sure, but seeing where they are, they probably are telling themselves, "Hey, all we got to do is win the rest of our games, and we're in." And
that's probably not the case.
Yeah, but I could see that kind of almost adding pressure to them, and Washington coming in there and catching them sleeping a little bit, not sleeping, but I think they can keep it a lot closer than that spread. I don't see them winning, but I see it being a close game.
Oregon plays a hell of a slate to end this season. They have Washington, who's ranked right now, Utah next week, who's 13th. Then Oregon State, who was ranked, they just lost, but they were ranked not that long ago. And then the Pac-12 championship, if they make it there, against probably USC, if they go undefeated going into that. That's tough for the road to hoe there at the end. So they could jump. The more I think about it, they probably will jump Tennessee if they, like from a resume standpoint, you have to.
Is UCLA on the same side as Oregon?
They've got rid of the divisions now. They're top two.
So it couldn't it be Oregon UCLA then? Because UCLA one loss.
It'll be to Oregon. Yeah, but I think USC wins that game. That's why I said that. But
they haven't played yet. USC and UCLA.
Correct.
Okay.
And Utah only has one loss too. So if USC beats, I guess Oregon can take care of that though if they beat Utah. Never mind. Don't listen to me. All right. Another 7:00 game that you picked here, Baylor at home. And what'd you say?
I said I feel like we haven't gotten to any of my picks yet.
We're at one now.
Yeah.
Here's Baylor and Kansas State. Talk about it.
That is, I was very hard pressed to find games I was confident about, so I went with the ballsy style this week. Seems like it's been working pretty well for me the last few weeks, where you got what's the line?
2.5. Yeah.
Baylor, right?
Baylor's favored. Yeah.
Baylor's favored by 2.5. They're unranked. Kansas State's coming in, and what are they ranked right now?
Oh, like 19th, something like that.
19th. They're coming off that loss to Texas. Texas was kicking their ass, and then they kind of blew the lead a little bit and ended up only winning by, I think, maybe 7. But, I mean, logic would say that Kansas State is going to win this game, and they're freaking ranked. Baylor's got 3 or 4 losses. They have no reason to be favored in this game. So that's why I go with the opposite, the ballsy pick with Baylor.
Kansas State got 3 losses too, baby. I don't think it's in ballsy pick territory. But I also don't trust Kansas State. It's on the road, but I don't know. Has Baylor beaten anybody worth a damn this year? Kansas, maybe?
I don't know. Do they only have 3 losses? I was thinking they might have 4.
They might have 4, but it's all about the same. Like everybody has at least 3 losses besides TCU in the Big 12, which is so everybody's kind of sitting there together. So I'll take Baylor at home, but I don't love it. I don't love it at all. Another game that you picked here in another ranked matchup, and actually a pretty big one if Clemson wants to backdoor their way in, or even this team, North Carolina, traveling to Wake as underdogs. They only have 1 loss. It was to Notre Dame, the only ranked team they've played. And Wake Forest at home with that high-powered offense. The last 2 games have been like 59-53 and 58-55. So expect some points down there in the Wakeland in Salem. So I'll take Carolina though with the 3.5 just for that half point for the. I mean, there's gonna be a lot of points in this game, so I'll take all the points I can get, baby.
I took Wake, and it was more the ballsy route. But if you look at the stats, neither one of them. I mean, they both score. They gain a bunch of yards. They score some points. Neither one of them have good pass defenses.
No.
Carolina actually gives up like 50 more yards passing per game than Wake. So I see Wake passing all over the field even more than Carolina does. So that's kind of what had me going towards Wake. Those points scare me a little bit, but that's kind of what pushed me over the edge because it seems like a little bit ballsy because Carolina's probably thinking, "Oh, we have a chance to make the playoff," even though they haven't.
No, I mean, Mac Brown is old and senile, but I don't think he's that senile.
Well, they could be a one-loss Power 5 champ, which is kind of crazy to say. But
It is very crazy to say, but also unlikely. I feel like we've seen this script before, and then they get killed in the championship by Clemson. But I don't think Clemson's killing anybody this year, so it doesn't matter. All right, the game of the week, though, the game of the week for game day. TCU travels to Arlington to play Texas. TCU again getting disrespected, but they do get that 4 seed in the rankings, so they're definitely in position now, exactly where they need to be. There's no doubt whatsoever that they will be in if they win out. I think that helps them. I think Texas. This is kind of ballsy pick line with the -7, but I also feel like the ballsy picks and just the Big 12 lines in general. Vegas has been off. I mean, they're off by like 46.5 points with Oklahoma State the other week, in what seemed like a kind of weird line. So I'm going to take TCU plus the 7. I don't know that they win, but I think they at least keep it close. I think it's going to be a good game, probably 7 points either way. So this is like push territory right here. But yeah, I'll take the Horned Frogs because I have them in the playoffs, so I'm going to take them to win.
this was ballsy territory for me. I felt like I had Texas. I also have that big parlay going. They got to win out. So keeping hope alive, baby. I think the Mullet might have a big game. He's been up and down this year. Bijan is a beast. I think he was, I was going to say the best running back in the country about midway through. Then he kind of fell off a little bit. Quorum took off. But I'd say he's second best. If he has a huge game, that'll be the difference. 7 is a big number when they're, TCU's undefeated, number 4 in the country. So that pushed me towards the ballsy pick line, and then my parlay had me over the top.
Just how you should do it. Well, I picked this team early in the season, so I'm not going to hedge. I'm going to keep rolling with them.
I hedge, and I'm wrong, and I'm right, and then they still lose again, then I'm fucked.
Yes, you are. All right. End of the week, though. End of this podcast. We'll pick our teams, though, or just say if you've changed anything. I haven't actually changed, even with Tennessee getting their butts kicked. I had Georgia and Tennessee both in, and TCU and Ohio State last couple weeks. I was off the Bama train already. I said after going into the Mississippi State game, they had one chance to impress me before I pick against them for the rest of the year, and they didn't impress me much that game. Even with like a pretty good outcome, it still wasn't like you call it angry Bama. So they're done, and that's the 4 I had in. I still have the same 4. I think TCU gets it done and gets in there. And Tennessee obviously isn't losing. Georgia's spot is pretty much secure. They're not losing until maybe the SEC championship, but even if they lose that, they're in, I think. And then I think we figure out a way to somehow pull it out of our butts and beat Michigan.
Yep. Basically, I've been picking Alabama all year. Just it's freaking Bama. Can't do that anymore. So the team that replaces them for me would be Oregon. They've been playing really well. They're not the same team they were when they got their asses kicked first week of the season. I've kind of stayed away from TCU all year too, so I'm not going to change that now. So I got Georgia 1, us 2, Oregon 3, Tennessee 4.
Yeah, if they get in, Tennessee's going to be the 4 seed if they get in. Unfortunately, Georgia.
Well, it'd be a rematch either way, so never mind. They're going to avoid that rematch, but yeah.
Yep. All right, that'll do it for us this week, though. Go out there, win some money. Don't get your kneecaps broken. I think right now, though, we're pretty solid guys to bet on. You can ride with us. Be confident. Feel smart. All right. Like us, subscribe, comment down there. Let us know that we aren't actually smart at all, and we're stupid, and we're terrible at these gambling picks. But follow us on Twitter at ViewFromCDeck, and we will catch you guys next time.
Hey, guys. Whoa, big gulps, huh? All right. Well, see you later.
a rich man's world.